Hi, my name is Greg. I'm an atheist and I post as GKLR on YouTube. This is the second part of a continued discussion with Paul Doman in respect to what an atheist is, and from my perspective. And I'd like to thank Paul for highlighting my first, or one of my replies actually to Greg Solomon, and that was an excellent thing to do. I got a whole bunch of subscribers, and that was really a surprise. I didn't think that that would happen to me. I consider this pretty boring stuff. So, anyway, in respect to an atheist, I think that part of the reply to Greg Solomon included a lot of what I wanted to say to you, actually, in respect to Occam's razor, as being why we can use our belief system and or believing that there's no God versus believing that there is a God, and show why it's neither religious to do so or anything else. It'll try to throw at you. And I thought that the Greg Solomon example was a good one, because that's exactly what was in effect happening. So really, there's more to it. I would say that what we want to talk about is different types of beliefs, and what types of beliefs constitute atheism, and what types of beliefs constitute theism. So a common atheist argument is going to be that they rely everything on myth and on mythical characters. And to a certain degree I agree with this, and to a certain degree I don't agree with it. Certainly the characters themselves are mythical. However, the logic being applied by theists is not entirely reliant upon, and again, we want to classify three different types of beliefs as subjective belief, being, I guess, the most, you need to, have the highest leaps of faith to get there. Then we're going to have mythical belief, which is we all use when we talk about Superman. I mean, myths don't just exist in religions; they exist in common everyday life frequently. So we all use myths as well. We all use subjectivity. We all use myths, and then there's assumption, or what we're going to describe as inductive logic. And when we're coming up with conclusions for data that we don't have. And I think the best example of this is that the sun will rise tomorrow. And inductive logic is how most theistic reasoning and theology is understood, rather than myth. So I believe that it's a myth on the part of atheists to promote, they have poor logic in the inductive logic that they apply, and we'll get to that, but it's not just myth that they believe in. And one of the primary arguments of most theology would be, of course, first cause arguments and stuff like this. And again, that's not found in the Bible. So it's using inductive logic to reason the way that they do. And the first cause argument would be, of course, that everything that exists needs to be caused, or everything that is, what they'll talk about is everything that is contingent on a creator, or that needs to be caused, but the uncaused is necessary. And you can actually find this if you do web searches on this. It's confusion between the two terms, contingent and necessary. And a clearer understanding of this, I think, is more vital to our understanding of world and reality than necessarily to atheism. But it's all interrelated, because there are philosophical implications involved. So the actual understanding of what is contingent and what is necessary is I think imperative to defending atheism, because we can talk about the two different types of truth: empirical truth, tautologist truth. We can talk about mind and matter, or matter and mind in this case. We can talk about meaningfully, we can say what we can describe objects that exist, that are both physical and metaphysical. And again, this brings in another contentious term for atheists: metaphysical, which simply sounds, it used to sound to me just like a spiritual term. When I heard of metaphysical, I automatically thought of religion. And it came to me through learning that, of course, it doesn't mean that at all. Metaphysical is means that it's something that exists that isn't physical. And so often I'll be with people perhaps less read, and they'll describe things that they can't touch or see but exists, like the air, and they'll use an example. And I said, well, you do touch air, and you can see air when you breathe out on a cold day. And there's all these evidences of the existence of air that we do see and touch. So this is a physical material object, which we use the empirical system of science to show. And then there'd be the logic abstracts of of logic, that we would have of language. It only exists in language. So we would have truth, existence, identity. The word science. Science itself is not a physical object. It's a property of language. It's something that concoction that we've invented and given meaning to. And this is what all words are, including truth and existence. And so that they mean things. And we need to show, I think, to theists that this was done by the mind of man. And that when they talk about soul, they're often talking about or I believe, they mean their mind. And if they hear voices in their head, then that's coming from a more of a mental issue than it is. For example, I think that if you pray, it's one thing, but if you actually get some answers, then you're hearing voices, and there's medicine to be treated for people that actually get a response from prayer. So, effectively, when we look at mind and we look at matter, and we can define them meaningfully, and we can describe all these things, then we don't have to revert to soul, and we don't have to revert to things that are concluded that they have through their inductive reasoning. It can be shown that they're unnecessary. And I think that this is one of the best advantages of atheism. For example, I like to describe how there's no scientific formula that uses God or spirits or ghosts or anything like that. There's no logical formula that uses God or spirits or ghosts or anything like that. So out of the only ways that we can know truthfully the world and what reality is around us is through empiricisms and tautologies, through science and logic, through all that we do know that does exist is mind and matter. And this explains all of everything that we know. Whereas there is no third, and all other elements that are believed to exist are simply that, believed or not believed to exist, or believed to exist or believed to not exist, if you prefer. So I think that the application of these basic understandings of formal logic, formal understanding, is all that's really required by any atheist to defend his atheism, or to define his atheism, and then to show why that system of belief is more sensible than another system. And it's simply because we can explain the universe without ever needing or reverting to magic, both scientifically and logically. And what could be better? So thanks, Paul. I think that this explains for myself pretty much what I think of atheism and why I'm an atheist, or the reasoning that goes behind how I define an atheist, and therefore why I'm an atheist. And I fully contest the idea that we are, of course, somebody who does not believe in God, because that's using secondary predication. Let's get into that just a little bit. The secondary predicate says I am what I am not. In other words, I'm not a person with horns. Again, it's true, but it's not true about what I am. It's true about what I'm not. In logic, we want to describe existence, and we talk about an object exists if there can be a truth about that object. But we mean that the object itself is the primary predicate of a truth statement. If it's a secondary predicate, then we are what we're not, then God, if we can say then God does not exist, would prove that God exists. So there's the logical problem of saying that we do not believe in God, and that's who we are what we're not. Then we would be accepting secondary predicates as primary predicates, and therefore when we get into the other logical questions such as on existence, and we talk about an object exists if there is one truth about that object, and that object is the primary predicate, not the secondary predicate. We're not talking about what the object is not. We're talking about what the object is. So because of that, then, of course, there is no God, if true, would prove there is a God. So this is the logical problem of using secondary predication wrongfully, and why we can't agree with, or I can't agree with, an atheist being somebody who does not believe in God. We believe there is no God. The negation goes on God, not on us. It has to be positive about us to describe us, is the rule. Okay, so thanks, Paul. I really appreciate the notice you gave me. I've actually got some subscribers now, I think 23, and I'm going to blush. I would have never expected that, and it's been a lot of fun. Thank you.